everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Hashtags and Habits podcast. My name is Danny White, and today I am very happy to welcome Scott Gabdullin to the podcast. Scott is a Canadian entrepreneur, an investor, and founder of Authority Factors. He is a search marketing expert with a proven track record of turning a trickle of prospects into a roaring cascade of business opportunities. Welcome, Scott. How are things in your area of the world?
Hi, Danny. Thank you so much for having me. It's warm. We had a little bit of a snowstorm in the last few days, but it's getting better now.
Awesome. Very cool. I'm glad to have you with us. So you've been in the SEO, SEM, demand generation business for a while now.
Yes.
How did you get interested in this industry and what led you to start Authority Factors?
Do you want a long story or the short one?
Well, I think we've got time for the long story today.
All right. Well, I started my career in computer engineering originally, and as a lot of engineers would probably say, the industry it requires a lot of passion to stay in it for a long time, in my opinion. And I just didn't have any passion for it. I got a degree. I spent a couple of years working, but then I needed to move somewhere else, and I started building websites, and that's where basically everything started from. And from websites it became SEO, and then paid advertising and social media, and PR and all sorts of various different marketing activities, just because I'm very curious and always like to learn. And that took me on a path of working for large enterprise agencies like Saatchi & Saatchi and Sapien Razorfish, working with clients like TD and KPMGs, and moving in-house, working for tech startups like Wave Financial, eventually leading to my own agency that, as you mentioned, is Authority Factors, plus a few other businesses that I own.
Awesome. So what has the journey of entrepreneurship been like for you? So you come from a computer engineering background, and then you jump out of that, which engineering is like a very structured, a lot of rules and things like that, like processes and systems. And you jump into entrepreneurship, which has no rules. It's just a free for all. So what has that journey been like to date?
Yeah, so as my wife would say, Scott is unemployable. I never really liked rules anyways. Anytime I felt like I was restricted, whenever you have a boss, you're always restricted in some one way or another. And so when I jumped into entrepreneurship, I loved it. That being said, overnight success is like 10 years in making. It was a lot of sweat equity that was put into it, a lot of tears and pain that we had to go through, but it led us on a path where we are now kind of living the lives the way we want. Our schedule is our own. Obviously, we still have clients since we are in service-based business, so clients kind of become your new boss, but the relationship is a lot more respectful, I would say, in a way. And it wasn't difficult for me to transition to entrepreneurship. It was more about picking up enough skills, just because I didn't have any, and that's what takes a really long time. I think anyone can be an entrepreneur, and if you're done engineering and you go and you become an entrepreneur in engineering, you're probably going to save a ton of time. I went from engineering to entrepreneurship, had nothing to do with engineering, and that took a long time. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I think we have such a similar background. I started just from college being in psychology, and then jumped off into digital marketing, and been in it ever since, and has nothing to do with psychology at all.
You know what? I would argue that you actually have a leg up on the rest of us in digital marketing. I love psychology. I actually got a little bit into reading Karen Horney and Jung and all sorts of psychoanalysis books back in university, and that piqued my interest in advertising first. I thought to myself, if you understand the other person, you probably can influence their behavior, their purchasing power, and whatnot. And a little bit of that exists in marketing, but not so much. But I think you have a leg up, is that you probably better understand the people that you're trying to advertise to or market to, and that would give you quite a bit of an advantage.
For sure. Yes, it has been helpful. It has been helpful. So diving off into brand awareness, you work with a lot of small businesses. What is the thing that you help them to focus on the most when it comes to attracting people into their company or attracting people to their services and products? And I know brand awareness is one of them. and there are multiple ways to build a brand. So like
Yeah.
what is the way that you leverage brand building for them?
Um, I've started a number of my own businesses. First,
Hmm.
we like small businesses, but offering services to small business is always difficult, just because
Right.
a lot of them are in a survival mode. Like you
Hmm.
said, they do want to build a brand over the long term, but at the beginning, it's quite a bit of how do I get a phone call just so that I could close a customer and then put food on the
Right.
table.
Yep.
And what we always do whenever we start a brand new business, or if we are partnering up with someone, we always start with paid advertising. That's always my recommendation to everyone: is start with paid
Okay.
advertising, because you're gonna start to get phone calls right on day one, right? 24, 48 hours for
Hmm.
ads to kick in. And the best place to do that is probably on Google if you are in local service, service niches that around, let's say, home services, house services, and stuff like that. And
Hmm.
that's where you start to see how the brand starts to shape up, right? So as soon as they pick up a phone call, and I've heard a lot of phone conversations from small businesses,
Right.
some of them will say, "Yes, who is this?" And others will be, "Hi, this is X, Y, and Z business. How may I help you?" And that's where the
Right.
brand starts to build. Right.
Right.
So everything that follows after that, the quality of your service, how you follow up, how you charge the customer, is there any
Hmm.
headaches or not? I was actually having a conversation with my wife, and she was like asking me, "Do you charge your customers extra 3% fee to compensate for Stripe fees and whatnot?" And I was like, "No,
Hmm.
that's my problem. The
Right.
business that I work with should not even have any kind of friction on the past to pay me."
For
So,
sure.
that's part of that kind of a brand building exercise and creating brand awareness, is that everything that you do in your own operations, in your own service, is going to affect how people will go and then recommend you and tell
Hmm.
others about you. Obviously, when it comes to organic presence on Google, for example, reviews are fabulous. But in order for you to get a review, you gotta provide a great service. It's a lot
Right.
easier to generate reviews when customers are happy. And so I always tell business owners is, if you want to build a strong brand, you start with a service. You start with the minute you pick up the phone call, that's when your brand is starting to build. So that's kind of how we approach it. In terms of other kind of activities that we put around brand awareness, would be a lot, like we're building, let's say, YouTube channels, right? So I
Hmm.
always recommend business owners, hey, go on YouTube, just because the reach that you can get from YouTube organically is huge, especially if you have valuable insights or
Right.
entertaining content. Unfortunately, only few are comfortable with that. But it took me
Hmm.
10 years to get comfortable with the idea of being on podcasts and building my own personal brand, because it was very comfortable of hiding behind SEO. We just do
Right.
stuff in the background, we publish the content, we don't have to be in front of the camera. It
Hmm.
takes a lot of effort. It takes getting used to, and so it's not for everyone, but it's definitely a great way to to build a brand, personal brand, business brand. And I think that every single time you think about a business brand, it's probably going to be attached to your persona, who you are as a
Absolutely.
person, and that's probably the easiest way to go about it. That's a
Gotcha.
long-winded answer.
No, that's great. So you mentioned paid ads as a
Yeah.
way to build brand awareness. So a lot of times you mentioned how small businesses are like in a survival mode, right? Like they
Mhm.
just need to get clients in the door. They just need to make sales,
Exactly.
and they need to increase their revenue, right?
Yeah.
What is the average budget that you recommend for small businesses who want to start
Yeah.
running ads on Google?
Uh, Whenever we get started, I usually tell them how much you're willing to lose.
Hmm.
Just because
It's a
there's
good
always
question.
yeah, there is always an option that things might, you have to put money in to make money back.
For
And
sure.
so whenever you start from scratch, you pay for the lessons that you learn. Now,
Hmm.
if you're someone who is a lucky person, and you just things go your way, then great. You're probably gonna make it, and whatever you do. But 99% of the time, for me, it's never about luck. It's about just trying things out and losing a couple $100 here and there, and then
Hmm.
going from there. But typically, we would set our ads at about $20 a day, and so it in local niches for local businesses, that would be enough to get started. Right now, if you're working with real estate agents, insurance, mortgage, anything that's very competitive and very
Hmm.
expensive, $20 a day is not going to be enough. right? You're
Right.
competing against banks, you're competing against large data aggregators and insurance aggregators and whatnot. So competing in that niche would require way larger budgets, and I would even
Hmm.
say for a startup, unless you have VC backing, unless you have millions of dollars VC funding, I would say that you probably should look into social media advertising. That
Right.
would be a much better bet, just because Google
Hmm.
tends to be quite expensive in those niches.
Okay. And when it comes to social media advertising,
Yeah,
a lot of times I tell my clients, okay, you need to start producing content on social media to
yeah.
give some lead up time to the algorithm to recognize your business on social media. What is your take on running paid campaigns on like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, even, which may or may not be banned in the United States soon,
Yeah.
and even LinkedIn? Like, how do you position your clients on those platforms?
Admittedly, we don't do much paid advertising on TikTok or LinkedIn.
Okay.
It just wasn't the niches that we would be into. But Facebook and Instagram have been around long enough, and everyone kind of have experience in it. I would say Facebook and Instagram are great to advertise, and right now, obviously, with Facebook, organic reach is kind of dead. So the strategies that we see working really well right now is
Mm-hmm.
to advertise your business page, right?
Okay.
So run ads towards page likes. Once you build up your page likes, tends to be anywhere between 10 cents and $1.50. That's what we paid. The more
Okay.
niche your business is, we have
Mm-hmm.
let's say some businesses where it's really niche audience. We paid $1.50 to acquire one like, which is expensive. So
Oh
for a
wow.
thousand
Yeah.
dollars, we're getting 1,000 followers, but that's quite a bit of money to
Quite
spend.
a bit of money. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're in travel, everybody's into travel. You can pick, very cool photos to go with the post and whatnot, and
Mm-hmm.
it's probably more easier to come up with the ideas for those posts. You can probably do it for 10 cents or even less per like. Now,
Right.
what happens next is that we like to post, like you said, organically afterwards, interesting content, and then potentially boost it to the audience that we already built up as a followers. Right. So it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of a two-pronged approach. You build up an audience, and then you still spend money, but less money to reach that audience that you acquired from Facebook. So that strategy tends to work really well. Anytime you obviously take users away from Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
they're not big fans of it, but I would recommend to take somewhere that is built to convert. So that's
Mm-hmm.
where conversion rate optimization becomes important. And I think a lot of businesses, especially small businesses, do not invest enough time thinking through what their website looks like and feels like and how well does it
Exactly.
convert.
Yeah.
So, if you are putting dollars behind paid ads, I would say that you should think through the website as well. It's about 50% is how well you do on a paid advertising side, but then
Mm-hmm.
50% is how well is your website built. Just because
Right.
if I land on someone's website and there's not enough information to follow the ad or apply, be relevant to the ad, the likelihood of me buying is going to be a lot lower.
Makes sense. Yes, absolutely. So ranking on the first page of Google, that is a common question that I often get
Right.
in just people that want to get more leads into their business, right?
Yeah.
Um, is it possible for a small business, which I think you'll say yes with the right resources, but
Yeah.
and how do you help business owners understand like the process of actually getting to the first page?
Yeah. So it is possible. Like you said, if there are enough resources invested into it.
Yep.
If you're starting from scratch, it's always an uphill battle, right? And that's why I always like to start with paid advertising. Or
Hmm.
if the small business already has paid advertising running, then there are lessons that you can be learned from that. The thing about keep in mind about SEO and let's say paid ads in Google is that they're both part of search marketing, which means that they're both based on exactly the same foundational component, which is the keywords.
Right.
So if your ads are doing really well for a keyword, that means that you can do SEO for the same keyword and get
Hmm.
results as well. Right.
Hmm.
If your ads are not doing for those keywords, then obviously the question becomes of how good is your page, how good is your offer. But if you know that that keyword is not working, there's no need. There's really no reason to put money behind ranking for those terms organically
Right.
running.
Hmm.
So we like to start with paid ads just to make sure that leads start to roll in and there's money to be made. right? So
Mm-hmm.
that business can actually start closing and getting some money in. And then you take the profits and you reinvest whatever profit is left, you reinvest into organic program. So that would be the best approach just because SEO does take time. It does take 6, 12 months. Now, there are
Yeah.
obviously exemptions. Some folks will go and, get lucky. And, if they got really big budgets, they might be able to get there quicker.
Mm-hmm.
But patience is required with SEO. And it's just not something that we see a lot among small business owners. There's not a lot of
Right.
patience out
Yeah.
there. They want results yesterday, and so SEO is a bit of a hard sell, and it's a lot of phone calls and a lot of conversations. So if someone is a small business owner, try to find a good agency, and then once you are working with good agency and they're good agency, trust them.
Yes.
Don't
Right.
call them every day. Yeah.
So how do you merge the content creation with the SEO, with the search engine, with the search SEM, and like merge that all together to create a great user experience where when people do land on your site,
Yeah.
they get what they need and they want to take the next step, like whatever that next step or call to action might be.
Yeah. So if the business is focusing on both paid advertising and SEO, what I do like is I like to split landing pages, the pages where
Mm-hmm.
the users end up buying or requesting services from. I like to split them up, one for SEO, one for paid ads. So let's
Okay.
say if I'm working with tree removal business, there's going to be a page for tree removal, Boston, for example, and that page is going to be 1,500, 2,000 words, whatever it needs
Mm-hmm.
to be in order for you to rank organically. But the
Mm-hmm.
problem is that if you bring traffic through paid ads to that page, your conversion rates are going to be much lower. The page is
Right.
too long, there's just too many words on it, and it just doesn't do as well for paid advertising as it does for SEO. So what we like to do is we just like to copy the page as long as the layout is nice, and then strip down the words, keep 500, 600, 800 words, whatever is necessary, just to make sure that it's a sales copy, and then
Mm-hmm.
run ads to that page, while the main one is the one that appears on the site and ranks for organically for SEO. That's what we
Gotcha.
like doing. Now, when it comes to actually kind of getting people to buy from you, there's obviously a lot of effort that has to be put into the page in terms of putting the right trust signals, right? So if you have testimonials, definitely have
Mm-hmm.
testimonials on a page. Hey, this
Yeah.
person said this about us. If you have a video from your business, put a video in there as well. Not all the way on the top, but somewhere in the middle in case someone scrolls down to look for more information.
Mm-hmm.
Most definitely have a phone number to reach to reach
Right.
you. There is no call to action. There is not going to be any phone calls coming through. And what we've noticed is that it depends on the niche. Every niche is different, but it's about 50-50 split. We get about
Mm-hmm.
50% calling and 50% submitting a lead form. So a form
Okay.
that asks for phone number, email, address, and maybe some message or text describing the need for service. But it's about 50-50 split, sometimes 70-30 in favor of one or the other, just depending on what kind of a niche it is. So I
Okay.
recommend to have both. For those who want to call, they call. For those who want to submit a form, submit a form. And that's how we usually structure it. That's where we go. That's how we go about it. And sometimes it also, quite often, it also helps to have reputation available outside of your website. So
Mm-hmm.
Trustpilot, Trust Radios, Google Business Profile reviews, Facebook reviews. You should most definitely ask your existing customers, the one that are happy with your service, to leave a review. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I see small business owners and they're like, yeah, we have 5 reviews, but they're all 5 stars. We don't really bother. And I'm like, it takes only one negative review for your 5 stars to become 2.5.
That's true.
So,
Very true.
yeah, it's not even so much about just having 5 stars, it's about future proofing yourself. In case one unhappy customer leaves one very negative review, it's at least not going to spoil the party for you.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And I think it helps to create a good A/B test between
That's it.
organic search and paid search, right? And you can
Yeah.
actually effectively see what is working and what is bringing in the most results. That's actually a good idea.
Yeah.
I want to talk about AI
Oh, yeah.
and AI content generation and
Yeah.
how it is integrated with SEO. Google has made a good number of algorithm updates and has
Yeah.
thrown quite a number of sites for a loop. I do know that sites like LinkedIn, sites like Quora, those types of sites are like still soaring to the top because of the type
Yeah.
of information that it's provided. But what
Yeah.
is your perspective on AI-based content and how it impacts search engine optimization?
Yeah. So if you look at authorityfactors.com kind of services that we offer as an agency, we took a stand that we do 100% human written content.
Okay.
The reason for it is not that we don't see opportunity in AI, it's just AI is so young. We don't want to offer AI content to clients because it's
Hmm.
not proven. Right. And March 5th's updates, the one that you mentioned, actually have proved the fact that AI is unproven.
Right.
It was a wild run for quite a few influencers who soared to the top of the first page with AI
Hmm.
written content, lots of it, and they made good money from it.
Hmm.
Kudos to those folks. But when it comes to servicing clients, we just can't take those types of risks. So
Right.
if
Yeah.
I was to make a recommendation to marketing agencies, I would say experiment with AI, which we do. We always experiment on our own websites, right?
Hmm.
We see AI working really well for sales copy on service pages. Like if you're creating something for Google Ads, doesn't matter if it's AI, it's not intended to rank. It's not intended
Right.
to be on SERPs, right? So that those pages are fabulous for AI. You save yourself a ton of time, a ton of money, and you can create those
Hmm.
pages very quickly. If you are creating something that's for long form content, 1500 words, 2000 words, 3000 words, AI starts to so if you kind of run the AI prompt, something that you will notice is that it goes really smooth, and then all of a sudden AI just changes and starts repeating itself, and then it kind of repeats
Yes.
itself again through another
Yeah.
section. Is because it doesn't think through the entire article as 3000 words. Let me outline and then come back with something that actually flows. It just thinks in
Hmm.
chunks, right? It just spills out those chunks. Where a lot of often content writers will do it in chunks in prompts, and
Hmm.
then 500 words there, and it's just not good content, not good user experience. And based on what we've seen, Google is definitely not in favor of mass produced AI content.
AI
Not
content.
so
Yeah.
much as AI content is a problem as it is just
Hmm.
mass produced spam for purposes of manipulating the algorithm for quicker results.
Right.
So, depending on who I'm talking to, if it's a small business owner, I would say, applied for landing pages that have sales copy. But if
Hmm.
you're doing long term SEO, still work with human written content. It works really well. Now, where it becomes a problem is how do you know that something is human written?
Human right. Exactly.
Yeah, so many writers these days are taking shortcuts. You just
Hmm.
don't know. So in our agency, we do everything in house, which is
Okay.
why if I find out someone is using AI, they're fired. I made it fairly obvious to everyone is that that's a
Yeah.
condition. Like you get fired if you cheat the system. The other thing is that if you do talk to really good writers, quite often they will say, "I'm not saying AI content is not good, but what they will say is that it's a lot easier to just write from scratch
Hmm.
than editing 3,000 words of AI written content. It's just it would have been so much faster to just go and write it from scratch.
Right.
That's what happens with really good writers. At least that's what my experience was, and so we only do a 100% human written, and then experiment on our own websites. We test with AI, and we see some good results for certain use cases.
Hmm.
But we just don't do it right now for long-term content for clients. None of that. And clients ask. They always ask. And this March 5th update was a kind of good reassurance to them. It's like, all right, we trusted in you, Scott. It's proven to be right, at least so
Right.
far. Let's stick to that strategy because we do produce a lot of content. On some of our clients, we would publish 200, 300 human written articles in 3, 4 months. Could
Hmm.
raise a flag, red flag with Google. Why so much content if it was pure AI? But because it's
Right.
human written content, it's still climbing up. So, yeah.
So, what do you say to those people who are using AI to like maybe draft out their content, but then they use human editors or people to read it and proofread it and edit it and add in their voice and tone? Like, how does that work, in your opinion, from just using human written content?
Yeah. I, I think there is so much nuance. But how good is your writer? Right. The one who
Hmm.
is actually rewriting the thing. How good is your
Right.
writer?
Yeah.
Um, there is probably a reason why something was written with AI in the first place. It's
Hmm.
probably a cost saving activity, or you're doing trying to do something that's mass producing, right? You
Right.
trying to get volume out of it. what I've noticed was a lot of folks who I talk to, and I communicate with black hat SEO folks, with white
Mm-hmm.
hats. Like I come out of enterprise world, which is largely white hat, and then I'm in masterminds, where there's a lot of black hats. And
Mm-hmm.
something that I've noticed is that whenever people tell me that they use writers to edit or editors to edit AI content, they're not true editors. It's cheaper writers who don't have to write anymore, right? And it's very outsourced folks from overseas. And the
Mm-hmm.
quality, if they wrote human written content, it would just not be good
It
content
would
in the
not.
first place.
Yes, I've had good
Now,
experiences with that.
yeah, so now you're getting AI written content, which
Yeah.
probably better than what that writer would write originally. But then
Mm-hmm.
because the writer just doesn't have as good of experience anyways with writing, the
Right.
copy is just average. So I don't have advice for that necessarily. I would say edit as heavily as you can if that's the path
Mm-hmm.
you're taking. I've seen folks who got hit anyways with the
Yeah.
algorithm. Manual penalties a lot, but that's can be really considered to be like Google knows what they're doing. They
Mm-hmm.
detect it and then they applied manual penalties. The biggest question is, does Google actually know how to detect AI content within the algorithm itself?
Mm-hmm.
And there seems to be some signals coming through right now. You can see websites dropping that were AI written, that don't have manual penalties, but seem to be having algorithmic one. So
Right.
something is trickling through. So I would say I've seen those guys who say like we edit heavily and they still get penalties. So
Yes. Yeah.
no idea.
I've seen a number of sites that are like that where they have written like drafts with AI or use certain AI tools to
Yeah,
write their initial draft of the content. And
yeah,
then they say that they've edited it. Like, okay, we added like 1,000 human words to the content and
yeah,
put our own brand voice on it. But
yeah,
they still took a really big hit with Google. And I do think that the more that Google's algorithm improves with the
yeah,
new content that is coming out, I do think there will be probably a good release of information about how they are detecting AI content, AI written content. And I think one big signaling factor is the repetitiveness of
yeah,
AI. So even we
yeah,
have tested out like AI, various AI tools, and after about 800 words, if you're trying to go beyond 800 words,
yeah.
it does start repeating itself in different words, but saying the same
Yes,
thing. So I think
exactly.
that also is something that is helping the Google algorithm to like signal, okay, this is an AI written content, and then now we can see it across the last 200 articles that you published. It's the same pattern, and so
Yeah,
that's what's causing a lot of the sites to dip. But definitely a lot more information to research and like see what's coming out for sure.
yeah, for sure.
Um,
That would be
yeah.
interesting to watch.
Yes, yes, that would absolutely be a very interesting thing. So let's talk about the larger competitors within industries, right? So
Yeah.
every industry has like its top two or three extensive enterprise competitors. How do small business owners compete with that when they are trying to drive search engine results or trying to drive lead generation in their business through search?
Ooh, good question. So if we're talking just purely about SEO, organic search here, I would say that for small businesses, the opportunity would probably be to do something like haro link building,
Mm-hmm.
HARO,
Mm-hmm.
basically based on the fact that you're providing quotes to journalists, and then you get featured in AOL and Yahoo and entrepreneur.com. So we found that to work really well. It's something that everyone can do. Is they can go
Mm-hmm.
and sign up for it quite often affordably, in some cases for free. And
Yeah.
then as long as you have the time and the expertise and writing skills, you should be able to start doing it for your business. There is really no easy way to compete against big players without putting some kind of a resource into it. So
Mm-hmm.
in our case, we always find that when it comes to local, at least, link building is incredibly important. All right, so link building is something that is here to stay. That's
Yep.
probably the best signals that Google has to judge one's authority, the website's
Mm-hmm.
authority. So
Mm-hmm.
no matter what everyone, some folks might say, link building this, link building that, it is a factor.
Right.
And I find that for small businesses, I find for any business, even with black hats, when I talk to black hats, and I don't consider myself to be either one of anything.
Right. Yeah.
I'm just an SEO. I'm a business owner. I'm not even an SEO. I'm a business owner. But
Mm-hmm.
I always tell them what we're trying to do with link building and all sorts of tactics is we're trying to fake a brand. So
Mm-hmm.
why not to just go and build a brand?
Right.
You
It
know what I
takes
mean?
the same amount of time.
Yeah, and we've done that successfully with some of our businesses, right? So my wife's business has been nominated and won to be top health and wellness service provider in Canada. So she runs a
Awesome.
yoga business.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you. And that was purely based on the fact that she invested heavily into providing great customer service. Clients went and then nominated her for that award, and that's how she got it. And that resulted in mentions, that resulted in
Mhm.
more PR. She runs certain services that got her, I don't know if American audience is familiar, but Breakfast Television. She was on Breakfast Television, big Canadian media channel. And that results in links, exposure, PR, brand awareness, and then just snowballs. If you are a smart
Yeah.
business owner, you'll take one interview and you'll go to another journalist and say, "Hey, we got featured here." Now, you're not the first to take a chance on us. And then you get
Yep.
there, and then you take the two of them and you send them to the third one and fourth one and fifth one. You just have to compile that PR exposure over time and then
Yeah.
use that to your business advantage. That would be the best advice that I have. If you're working with agencies, get great content and get great links. That will get you 90% there. Yeah.
Gotcha. Awesome. That's good feedback. I think that sometimes small businesses overlook the process that all of this takes and the time, the patience that they have to put into it. But if you start it and continue it over a period of time, it will certainly start yielding results
That's
for any
right.
business. And we've seen that in some of the clients that we have worked with as well. I think my last and final question is more so around demand generation, lead generation.
Yeah.
It's literally the bloodline of every single business, right?
Right.
Getting the sales pipeline to 100%.
Okay.
What are your thoughts or what are your strategies for lead generation? And how would you tell a small business to be able to close that lead? I think that's a big factor in like business growth, being
Yeah.
not just getting the leads in the business. Because I see where businesses get like 30 leads in a week,
Yeah.
and but no one in the company is able to like close those leads. They don't
Yeah.
understand customer service. They don't understand how to combat objectives, things like that. So how would you go about that process? How do you go about that process with your clients?
I win. Uh, so so just to kind of give a macro view here, Authority Factors deals with medium to enterprise clients, offering them
Mhm.
services, SEO and
Okay.
content marketing, because those businesses understand the value of SEO and we don't have to
Right.
educate them.
Yep.
What we learned with small businesses is that small businesses, like I said, are quite often in survival mode. So offering
Mhm.
them a service where you do something months to months is exhausting
Yep.
because they're trying to make it work and they're always asking you how it's going. And if it's not, or the phone is not ringing, they're going to be bugging you all the time. So what we decided is that we don't want to offer services to small businesses.
Mhm.
But small businesses is such a large TAM, like
It
total addressable
is.
market. You
Yeah.
just can't ignore it. So what we did instead was to build a lead generation business where basically we just sell leads. We don't sell a service. We just sell you a package of 10, 20, 50, 100 leads, whether that's lawn
Mhm.
care, lawn mowing, landscaping, whatever.
Mhm.
The beauty of that system is that we don't touch clients' websites. There's not a single access that we need from the client. No Google Analytics, no WordPress, no Shopify, no nothing.
Yeah.
We build our own landing pages. We build our own ads. The only thing that happens on a website, whenever someone calls that phone number, it just sends it over to the business owner's phone number. That's it.
Right.
That's the only thing we need to know is what's your phone number and what leads you want, how many of them, and that's how we forward those leads to the business. So that we find to be as a service offering, like it's a
Mhm.
productized service essentially, to be the best solution. It's just because small businesses, to no fault of their own necessarily, are they're just too much involved in I'm
In
paying
the
you a
business.
thousand
Yeah.
dollars I'm paying you $2,000, it's taking away from my family, like we don't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
So leads are, like you said, if you can figure that problem out. Once they start calling, we're done, right? The
Mm-hmm.
phone call
Mm-hmm.
goes through, our job is done because we know it's a quality phone call. We listen in conversation, we see the form submissions. I
Yeah.
tell business owners, past that point, the rest is on you.
Yeah.
And like you said, there are business owners out there who do not have a sales team. They do not have someone to properly, qualify as a lead and actually
Qualify.
close
Yeah.
them. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and we just don't get involved with that. We can advise them. We can tell them like, I don't think you're doing a good job. You gotta hire someone. But if business owner doesn't do anything about it, at the end of the day, it's on them,
It's
right?
on them.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and that's why when offering services, no matter how much leads you send, the business will just never be happy if they can't close those leads. It's gonna be
Right.
always leads problem. It's
Mm-hmm.
never the sales problem. It's
So
always leads problem.
exactly.
Leads are not good, which can be the case. Leads
Yeah.
can be bad,
Right.
but if you know leads are good, then it's just a business owner cannot close. And I know a lot of business owners who would just stop working with, even for buying leads, is because I
Mm-hmm.
told them like you won't make enough money back. You
Right.
just you constantly blame people calling you. This person is this and that person is that, and they said this. How dare they? I'm like, you're a service provider.
You're in service
You
provider. Yeah.
you gotta be willing to accept the fact that people can be painful to deal with. That's the way it
Yes.
is.
That is the
So
cost of business, though. It's what you
exactly.
signed up for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, they complain about this. And I'm like, that's the nature of the business you're in now. And so if they can't handle it, we just stop selling them the leads just because we know they're
Mm-hmm.
not going to make anything out of it. And so, yeah, that's as far as I go. We never like we do equity partnerships, and we only do it with business owners who are great operators. They need to be really good at executing their job as a plumber, as an
Mm-hmm.
electrician, as an arborist. They need to be
Mm-hmm.
really good because then we know that we can pump the leads into that business and it's going to make money for everyone.
Right.
You do not
Yeah.
want to get equity in a business that does not know how to operate because then all you get is liabilities, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so my like if I was to advise a business owner, I would say you got to fix your sales. It's a problem. You are the problem, so you need to hire someone. And if they're not willing to go past that point and admit that to be a problem, then there's nothing you can do as a marketer really or a service provider. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. That's great advice. So, as we wrap up, I'd like for you to
Okay.
share your top SEO or business insights with our audience. Give us just 3 minutes worth of your most valuable advice.
Yeah, I would probably go with the business advice. So something that we see working really well for businesses starting from zero is that they should probably buy leads. Okay, so get business to a point where it makes 100, 150, $200,000 just purely through leads. We don't focus on anything else. There's no brand, no nothing. We're trying to make sure that this business owner has stable income to take care of the family.
Mm-hmm.
Once they get to 100, 150, depending on what, if you live in Toronto or New York, you need more. If you
Right.
live somewhere, Remus, Michigan, you probably need less. So,
Right.
but once you get to that point where leads are taking care of everything for you, that's when you start to invest into brand. That's when you need to start to think to yourself, well, what if my lead provider disappears? What happens to my business? I've got just two contractors now, right?
Yeah.
So that's when you start to look for services. You look for an agencies and freelancers because you've got extra income, profits, and that you can reinvest into those services to build your own website, to build your own brand, to get someone helping you with PR and getting featured in magazines and newspapers, local newspapers, radio and whatnot. That's a
Sure.
great point to start to invest. And then past that point, you build a brand, and then you get to choose: do I continue with some leads here and generating leads from my own website? It's a combination of two, a hybrid model, or do I just go purely through my own brand alone?
Mm-hmm.
And then it just goes straight to a million, 1.5 million. Every business is different from that point on.
Good to know. This has been a really great conversation, Scott. Thanks for all of your insights. Where can people find more about you and your business?
The best place would probably just Google my name, Scott Gabdullin.
Okay.
Everything that is pretty much one person in the world that has that name, and as a result, Google is pretty good at pulling all the results there.
Nice.
Yep. So you'll find quite a bit of information on my personal websites and my personal website, and will take you to various different agencies or businesses that I operate.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Scott, for your time. Really appreciate you joining me today. This has been a really great conversation, and look forward to seeing all of the new things that you come up with and do for yourself and your customers over the next couple of months.
Thank you, Danny. Had a great time. Looking forward to sharing this episode with everyone, including my own community. Thank you.
Awesome.